Baldur's Gate 3 just got a new 10GB update. While the download of this one was relatively small, it will still require about 140GB of space to install, or alternatively, Larian just recommends reinstalling the entire game. This update is massive. It brings new ending cinematics focused around evil characters, as well as full-on mod support to Baldur's Gate 3. But at least as of right now, this is just on PC, as patch 7 will be coming to Mac and consoles sometime in October. One of the biggest features of this update are the addition of 13 totally new ending cinematics that are focused around evil players. And thankfully, this is not just for Dark Urge players. Tons of evil playstyles are supported with this one. So here, I'm going to be showing you nearly all of these new cinematics, or at least trying to. Some of these get seriously evil and cannot be fully shown on YouTube, but if you are looking to avoid spoilers, I can first give you a brief overview of what kinds of new cinematics and endings are available, as these cinematics will roughly fall into 3 major categories. Several will be new choices for general evil players who did not do a Dark Urge playthrough, so just kind of being a bad guy and seeing what happens. Of course, a separate set of choices for those who did pursue a Dark Urge character, and actually several sub-options within that. And lastly, there are several character-specific endings that'll be dependent on who you're playing as, or sometimes even who you're playing with. But if you do want to go in blind and not see these cinematics ahead of time, click ahead in the video now. If you're not playing a Dark Urge character and you have made the right choices to trigger the evil ending, your first decision will be around accepting or trying to reject Ceramorphosis, and what you choose here will actually determine which of the evil endings you have access to. So if you resist this, you'll have to pass a Constitution saving throw, or alternatively, there's just a new option to accept the process with your choices brought you here, accept your fate and succumb to Ceramorphosis. If you choose that, or alternatively just fail the saving throw, you'll get this new Illithid ending as your only ending choice, as you watch your character transform into an Illithid. This is quite gruesome in its own right, but after, you'll then command the rest of the people around you to follow suit and go through that exact same process themselves. Alternatively, if you do pass the saving throw, you can have 4 or potentially even more additional ending options available to you. There's some character-specific endings that'll come into play here, but we'll talk about those a little bit later on, as here you'll have access to the 4 major ending decisions that'll trigger these 4 new cinematics. You can opt to not rule and instead go for all-out chaos. This is probably a good time to mention that the nudity toggle in Baldur's Gate 3 is now a violence and nudity toggle, because yeah, some of these ending cinematics were so violent that they actually changed the censor options to avoid them, and many of these are of course also going to be too violent for YouTube. As opting for chaos here will have you controlling the people of Baldur's Gate to kill each other as they lose control of their own choices and body. Looting and destruction will break out, and there's going to be a ton of bloodshed. Larian didn't pull any punches here. Nobody is safe, not even the children. And perhaps that wasn't your preferred manner of destruction. You can instead just directly kill everyone with one of the cruelest of the evil endings. Because before you kill everyone, you have a moment where you spread hope and what appears to be a moment of happiness. Just before making that final decision for everyone's fate. And to me, this is probably the darkest final shot available from any of these endings. And one of the relatively less evil endings, you can instead opt for Conquest, and the people of Baldur's Gate will pick up arms in your name to take down your enemies. So now, of course, it seems like this is not of their own free will. You are controlling them and forcing them to do so. You even see them in some cultist uniforms towards the end. But hey, at least most of them get to survive here. And in what is almost a kind ending relative to the rest, you can also have the people of Baldur's Gate build a monument to you. You do this by flooding them with mindless bliss.
Through contentment,
They feel perfectly content, meanwhile their bodies will do your bidding. As far as evil endings go, this one is not all that bad. It's almost more of a generic Marvel villain variety as opposed to something truly gruesome.
All thanks to you, savior of the world.
Alternatively, if you're using a Dark Urge origin, there's a separate set of evil endings available to you. You of course force a Dark Urge attack on Baldur's Gate, but when it comes to your first bloodshed, you'll have a few options to pick from. If you do have a romance partner in your party for this finale, you'll get to kill them with a final kiss and a blade to the back. After that, the remaining companions will be forced to jump to their demise, and it seems like they're fully conscious of what is happening, even though their bodies are out of their control. If you don't have a romance partner, you could just reward your companions for their service with a jump to their demise. There are even some new companion interactions to accompany these as well, or you can allow your companions to just run free. But perhaps one of the most exciting aspects of this are some of the new character-specific evil endings that'll be available. Astarion will be able to infuse himself with the power of the Absolute and become a Sun King. This is a relatively positive ending, but of course, a Vampire King does come with its own unique set of downsides. Karlach can finally take her revenge. Now that power is hers, she can enact her will on those who rejected her, calling in her own forces to take over. Shadowheart has a fairly liberating option: reject the paths of the two Warren goddesses and lead your own way along a new path, your path. This is quite similar to the Chaos ending, as you will incite all-out chaos briefly, but eventually are left with a set of loyal followers for the battles you have ahead of you, as well as there are even some new choices as to how to handle an Emperor ending. You can choose to rebel against the Emperor, taking power for yourself, which yields a relatively short cinematic.
No matter, another will serve in your stead. As for you,
or side with the Emperor and rule together. You'll force the people onto your side like some of the other endings, but also begin to hunt down your detractors, who will eventually be forced away.
Together none can resist you. After all, you were made for each other.
The other massive feature to come from this update is the newly added in-game mod manager, and to accompany this, we get the release of the Baldur's Gate 3 toolkit, aka official mod tools for Baldur's Gate 3. While modding has already been around for a while, this is still a pretty big deal. Using the official mod tools will dramatically increase compatibility of mods in general, including there now being support for console modding with Baldur's Gate 3. So obviously this isn't technically available right now because patch 7 is not out on consoles and not slated to come out until October, but Larian has made it clear that supported mods will work anywhere. So seemingly all of the mods that are available via this mod manager will be available on consoles as long as you release them on that platform. It genuinely seems like we are finally getting PlayStation 5 mods for a major game. In anticipation for the release of patch 7, Larian worked with some of these script extender devs to avoid issues. And as such, most of these script extender based mods should not be broken with this update, and Baldur's Gate 3 itself now has support for some scripted mods out there. The in-game mod menu is pretty on par with what you can find in other games. You have some of the basic options like a search as well as a variety of filtering options. You can look at the most downloaded mods, some of the recently trending mods, or even just some of the newest things available. You can quickly and easily see which mods are available and add them to your game. And once doing so, you'll find them nicely organized in a new install section where you can enable or disable mods or even just update them, which is a really nice quality of life feature to have from day one. So now, of course, this built-in mod manager isn't necessarily meant to be a full-scale replacement for some of the other options out there, but really just a simple built-in option in case you don't want to download third-party tools while modding. Because if you're doing a heavy load order, you probably still will want some of the more powerful third-party mod managers. Quite a few mods are uploaded here already. The system was in closed beta for quite a while now. The most popular option right now is an improved UI, so you can just have a better experience while playing. There are additional choices on how to build out your character with new hairs and faces available, or even just playing the game with a totally new race available to you. As you load into the game, it'll prompt you if the mods on that save differ from your current load order, and in turn allow you to disable some of the currently enabled mods if there are some things that weren't on that save in the past. But of course, there are a ton of in-game mods here as well. Many cheat mods are already available, like being able to increase your party's limit or even reducing the weight of consumables to 0. And a ton of quality of life content is already out there, like an improved inventory UI. And as you could probably imagine, there's also a flood of character editing mods. You can make basically any companion a smaller variant of themselves if you want to. Obviously right now, all of this is still in the very early days, but it definitely has the potential to be genuinely game-changing. There are a lot of mods already released for Baldur's Gate 3, and in the coming weeks, many of these will likely be updated and potentially even improved with some of these new mod tools. So by the time patch 7 drops on consoles and Mac, I have to imagine there's going to be a massive collection of mods available for console users. This really is just the beginning, and get subscribed because you can expect many mod videos in the future. As well as with keeping up with being the ultimate nice guys, Larian also added patch 6 as a beta build on Steam. So if you already are using a heavily modded setup and don't want to update your game, you can just opt into this beta to stay on the old version of Baldur's Gate 3. Those were easily some of the biggest changes to come with patch 7, but in addition, a variety of more miscellaneous changes did come through as well. There are a variety of new legendary actions added to Honor Mode, making some of those boss fights even tougher. But now you can experience those legendary actions even outside of Honor Mode. Patch 7 brought a new Honor Mode rule set option for when using a custom mode. So if you do choose this, you'll have some of the Honor Mode bonuses like bosses with legendary actions, a stricter resource economy, as well as some of the damage bonuses from Honor Mode. But of course, it's not going to be permadeath anymore, and you can still configure all of these other custom mode options that are typically available to you. So basically a far more difficult way to play the game while it's still not quite being permadeath, and you do have more customizability. If you knock out Minthara to recruit her in Act 2, she will now have some custom dialogue acknowledging this as you go to recruit her.
There is yet one thing about you that troubles me, though. Something I need you to explain.
You chose to incapacitate me rather than killing me when you eradicated my minions. Why? So might any other true soul. And yet Gut and Ragslin do not stand with us under your protection. Sparing an enemy's life is a great risk. Even though I owe my life to the part of you that showed me mercy, it concerns me. If Ketherick had ordered me to slay you to prove my worth, I would have. Or died trying. I should not lose myself in these thoughts of what might have been. I live, and I am grateful.
During a Dark Urge playthrough, you can now have Alfira temporarily join your party. This is very limited, not a full-on companion, as you're only able to control her in your camp. As soon as you leave camp, you will no longer have her. This, of course, due to what happens in her story next. And even beyond that, there was a ton more. This was a massive update to the game, and there are even further revisions, like split-screen improvements. You get some additional help in the final battle, based on certain decisions you make along the way, and a ton more. I simply don't have time to go over every single change. Although one pretty important note, outside of some exploits being resolved, this patch didn't contain any notable balance changes that would impact the meta in a substantial way. So meta-wise, things are largely the same as patch 6. And one thing we did learn is this isn't actually the end for Baldur's Gate 3. Obviously, mod support is coming later this month for consoles, but even beyond that, Larian promises a couple more updates, including a full-fledged photo mode, as well as PC and console crossplay. So patch 8 is happening, but it definitely seems like patch 7 will be the last truly massive update. And if you want to stay informed around all of that, make sure to get subscribed.